Welcome back to DM-Nastics, the gym for dungeon masters to work out their minds. I'm one of your hosts, DM Neil, aka Joke Maniac.
And it's me, your other host, DM Celeste, aka Sea Witch.
Dun dun dun.
Wow.
We're back in the gym.
Hello.
And we're not going to mess around this time because we're going straight back into an article. This article will not cover the topic by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, good.
Because this is the most difficult thing. It is often unsupported in a meaningful way. And I say that across every edition of Dungeons and Dragons I have played. It is supported sometimes.
Yes.
Because today's article is entitled Dungeons and Dragons, 6 Tips to Run a High-Level Campaign, brought to us by Lucas Ola on The Gamer.
Oh, Lucas, let's see. Have you fixed it, buddy? It's a historically rough problem. 50 years of nonsense.
Yeah, I would say let's tackle a little bit of history. Have you ever played in a campaign high level? Because I can't say definitively yes. I have definitely played a lot of high level characters, but typically I've done it as like really short arcs or specifically one shots. I cannot think of a time that I feel like I played a campaign at higher levels.
Yeah, because like we did, you ran us through like with a group of friends. We played that level 20 game for a while. That was like 4 or 5 sessions, not really like a proper campaign, but I have, so I've GM'd several campaigns that went to pretty high levels. So like the first Venture Maidens, the Fate campaign went all the way up to 17.
Okay.
And that was like we started at 1, we made it all the way up there. So it was quite a bit of higher level play. And like you, I've run a bunch of, one shots and stuff, but in general, yeah, I think that was probably the one like standout, really high level, consistent campaign that I've run.
Yeah, and my big touch point will always be Baldur's Gate 3, where they were like, no, 12 is the cap, because it would literally, everything's going to break in half and then some if we go to 13 and give you those spells. So we're not going to do it.
Which is fair, because quite honestly, and this is, something that is pretty well known. I mean, nobody, at Wizards will ever officially say it, but basically they didn't play test the game past level 10. Like when they were, rolling out, because they had to get D&D 5e out really fast because of the epic failure that was 4e. Hasbro execs were like, money now, push the game out now. Mm-hmm. So when they were playtesting in those initial phases, the public never saw playtests beyond those levels. And when you look at the math and you go back in, you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, because CR just like falls apart, for monsters after like kind of that CR 10th level range. Some of the features are just like wildly unbalanced across the classes. Like this 20 level ability total garbage, while this other one seems like I'm too amazing to stand. There's clearly a disparity built right into the game there. So already in 5e, it's very hard to be a GM or a player if you're seeking a balanced experience and just using, core, like, WotC products.
Yeah. And God forbid you try and go mythic, like in 3rd, going above 20.
Yeah.
I do know that the new player's handbook, page 43, it's the only page that I've like really honed in on because I needed it. That's really why, because I had someone joining my campaign and we're at 10th level. That's the page where it talks about having a character start at higher levels. And one of the other pieces on there is, what do you do past 20? And one of the suggestions it gave was every 30,000 experience, let them choose another feat. So then you're basically doing like, and I would assume at that point, you could also choose to do an ability score increase or something like that.
Yeah, and that's they kind of in 5e at least they had those epic boons. That's what they tried to do with them, but now they've just kind of baked that in to the core 20th level feature for D&D 2024. So yeah, making it a feat makes a lot of sense.
So that is one suggestion, but we've got 6 more. So now we can find out what suggestions will Lucas be providing us today
to help us run these very hard campaigns.
Number 6, use powerful spells, abilities, and creatures.
Yeah. I mean, Lucas even says, sentence 1, this is a no-brainer, but it needs to be said, which is fair. I
do like that they will likely not die against whatever you throw at them. This is an interesting thing because that is historically, what ends up happening at higher levels is you die or you don't.
Yeah.
And it's usually within like the first couple of rounds that is determined. Either you have killed the monster or the monster has killed you. Done. Because you're just playing with numbers that are so large.
So big, so swingy at that point. Yeah.
You have to. Because there's only so... Yeah, could I throw 1,000 goblins at them? Yeah, but what does that do? Like, all the numbers are broken now. Because I threw so many monsters at them. Because then, by the law of averages, do I just crit them into the ground? One of the other big things about this is, like, you should have somewhat of a gauge as to how powerful your players have become along those levels. Because, again, the key focus here is a campaign. One of the hardest, I mean, in some ways, running a high level one-shot is more difficult. Because there's so many unknowns. Like, how do all of their abilities synergize? Will they even figure it out? Because you may know that they synergize really well, and they don't. Or they don't figure it out. Or they have magic items that are higher, like very rare. And then you're like, oh no, it's all gone. I've died.
Yeah. It's definitely tough. It's a lot more work on a GM to run higher level play, because not only is it enough now to, like, you know, pick the big scary monsters, right? Like, because CR, you know, sure, you can fight with a Tarrasque, right? Like, oh, that's the scariest thing, you know, you're given in the monster manual. But at the end of the day, when you have 5 or 6 adventurers in your party coming up against a solo creature, that's never going to work unless you as the GM do the extra work to make it more complicated. That means investing in those minions, or for any humanoid or any intelligent boss monster, you need to be playing that monster so smart. Like, that monster needs to be as prepared to fight the party as the party is to fight anything. So that means, you know, if you have your Lich, obviously that Lich is going to set up a fortress. They are going to use all of those ritual spells ahead of time. So, like, your players are walking into a trap, right? They are going to use every single resource at their disposal. And you shouldn't feel bad as a GM picking monsters that directly have things to, like, shut down characters. Because if you are playing in a 20th level campaign, the world has heard about your characters, right? You are, like, epic, legendary characters. So, of course, the villains should know a lot about each of these characters and know specifically how to foil them. And you should not pull punches, because that is the kind of stuff that your players want to experience. Like, I always say, for high level campaigns, it's actually way better to think of them more like a superhero story, right? Because, like,
it's so funny. Oh, I already know. We're gonna hit on that so hard on one of the next
we are
later
okay.
ones. So yeah,
okay.
keep going.
All right. Well, yeah, because it's like, you know, if you have Superman. Superman is a god, is an immortal god, yet somehow every week we find a way to challenge him, right? Like, and that, you know, and tune in next time, what the hell happens to Superman? That is the kind of way you need to think about these things. All your players are Supermen. Play on their weaknesses, play on what is important to them, manipulate them, get specific. That is the only way you can keep the action exciting.
I think about, like, when I try and play really smart, especially if I have a single creature, because it's like you said, let's say I have 5 people at my table. I go 5 go. I go 5 go. Yeah, no, not if we're playing at this level. I go, and I also remember, okay, if I'm going to use my lair action at initiative 20, then that means 1, 2 will go. Okay, but in the middle of that, I'm going to use my legendary action, then I'll go, then I'll let them go, but I'll go ahead and make sure that I use my other legendary action so that I use all of those points. And now it's more of, I kind of went, maybe 1, maybe 2, I get to do some more, maybe 1, maybe 2, I get to do some more. So now it's
action economy is critical.
Yeah, and so you're doing that trade back and forth, and, like, not only does it make your monster feel bigger and badder, the whole fight feels more dynamic because something is happening all the time.
Yeah, nobody's waiting around, because even the people who stomp face don't want to feel like it was easy to, like, just stomp the face. So if you just go, like, 5 heroes take their turn in a row while your monster's just sitting there and taking it, like, that's never going to feel like a satisfying fight.
But what is number 5? Because we do need to make sure it is satisfying.
Yes, absolutely. Number 5, let them enjoy their power. That's a good one. Yes. So Lucas says, though, you want to challenge them with your BBEGs, your big bad evil guys, who should be, deadly. It's also okay to have weaker enemies that your players will obliterate. Yes, this is great. So Lucas, even in here, is like, give them hundreds of weak minions to destroy. Yeah, Lucas, give them things like, destroy a town, like obliterate whatever. And this is also great. This is so great. Such a good strategy because 1, they feel powerful, and 2, you're secretly making them burn their resources before you challenge them with something big. If you can set that up, that is brilliant. That is just the icing on the cake. Make them work for it. Yeah.
yeah. Letting it, because especially again, all of this is framed as campaign. I think that's super important to keep framing these things in that way, because this is what they've been striving for. This is what they've been going for the entire time.
Finally, if it's a boss fight or a mini boss fight too, yes, absolutely.
And every player is different. You have that player that has just wandered their build into what they happen to have. Not a big deal. Kind of just take it as it goes. But you also probably have a player who's been thinking about this move, this set of moves, since they were first level. And it's what they've been going for the entire time. Planning out what magic items they have and all of these things. So yeah, making sure that the things that they've built get to go off and get to be those things. And that barbarian, let them throw large creatures if their strength's 24. Sure.
Yeah.
Bend the rules, break the rules.
Yeah. Give them stuff to do. Don't stage your arena so, the rogue can never use their sneak attack, right? Give them plenty of things, keep the basics there, right? So they can use their class features. So don't shut those down, but come with offensive things that directly hurt a lot. Or create scenarios. This is something like the Dark Souls games or Elden Ring or whatever are great at doing. When you're coming up on a boss fight, you get yourself into a position where you're in a gauntlet that not only is it going to be the boss fight but before you get there, you got to do 2 mini bosses. Before that, you got to get through the mob, and hell no, for whatever reason, there's no campfire here, and you cannot long rest or short rest. So it is a grind, and that is why it's so good when you beat the boss, and it's so hard getting there.
So number 4, though, we got to raise the stakes. Which, because if you think a higher level and dig through a dungeon, that's just doing something that you would have done potentially at a lower level with different numbers. Your reasons why not to say that a high level dungeon is bad. I'm just saying that there needs inherently with that, why are we still going into dungeons at this level? And there's reasons. There are a myriad of reasons and hundreds, if not thousands of things you can go purchase to see exactly what some other people think those reasons might be. But you need to have those reasons other than, loot. It's probably not going to go as well.
This is perfect. Going back to, the superhero example. Why do these people keep doing this? Why do they keep waking up every day? Why do these villains keep coming after these people? It's because the superheroes have weaknesses. They have things they love, and the villains target them time and time again. Whether it's planet Earth or the city of Gotham or, your girlfriend, Mary Jane, find those things, whatever they are, to your heroes. And if those things are in peril, there will always be a reason to adventure. There will always be a reason to fight. If you're not building stories specifically tied to why your characters are still adventuring and why they got this far, it's never going to work at high levels.
Yeah, because so the examples that Lucas brought up is there's a Kraken that's just been destroying all kinds of ships in a prominent area. The Tarask shows up. High level spellcaster. With this one, the high level spellcaster one is really interesting to me because the options you afford yourself. Yes. The example that's given here is just meteor swarm and towns are just turning into craters. That's an issue. But the more subtle version is towns are turning into zombies. Towns are turning into thralls. They're not even zombies because that last statement immediately leads into the next one. So what is number 3?
Oh, here we go. Yep, I jumped the gun. Put others, especially loved ones, in danger.
So this is my Superman thing, and so I do another podcast called Well and the Young Justice Files. We had someone on, Jeff Stormer, awesome person, Party of One. If you're not listening, where basically Jeff plays 2-player games. I've been on, and even adapts games to be 2 players just to see how it functions. But he also has a degree in comics history. So one of the things about Superman's stories is finding things that his powers can't solve.
Yeah.
And you make some of the best stories because one of the examples is he figures out that Billy Batson, who is an 8-year-old boy, becomes Shazam. And it's like, wait, what is happening? This is a child who is now having to deal with very adult things. Who did this to you? And there's nothing you can do. Or someone that he loves gets cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying to put that in your D&D scenario necessarily, but like these are the kinds of things that, like, regardless of the power that you have, you may not be able to do anything about it. And so you start to implement some of these to increase those stakes, because in spite of all the power that you have, what do you do?
Yeah, and this, again, just saying one more time, this isn't a license to go on a spree and kill, like, every, NPC and a character's backstory. In fact, if you start doing that, everyone will hate you and they won't want to play anyway. But the thing is, like, you can think a little bit more outside the box here, and there are plenty of examples to point to. I mean, look at Frodo in Lord of the Rings, right? What is he actually fighting for? It's to preserve a way of life, right? It's to preserve his memories of his childhood and these people who none of the hobbits know what is going on, right? Like, they really don't, and they would rather stay out of it. But Frodo recognizes that this way of life will be gone. It will be obliterated if the future changes. And that's what he keeps fighting for time after time after time. Fighting for his friends, too, right? Like, because he wants his friend Aragorn to be the king, right? And to bring some order here. And he just keeps seeing how horrible life is other places. So it can be part of that learning, right? And that's where really setting up a great, like, world where things are at stake and there are things to lose will help you so much along the way when you get to these higher levels. And, maybe there's, like, if you have a bard or a wizard or someone who's a little more academically inclined or tuned into the culture, like, maybe the world is on the brink of war, right? Like, if there's a villain who's pushing, all the wrong buttons and destroying towns on both sides to, like, start a war, like, that could be a huge motivator, too. There's a lot of different things you can do when you start pulling the lens back and dialing in on what exactly is it that these characters care about.
And bringing those things up and having those ideas, I think, is also really important. If you think of, like, the scene in The Green Dragon where they're all just drinking, having fun, dancing, singing, and all of those things, but then you're in, like, the middle of Mordor, and, like, you hold on to that idea that, like, yes, if I don't do this, no one gets to do that anymore. And, like,
yeah,
okay, I get it. I get why I'm here.
Yeah. And also make sure to keep checking in with your characters, too, because characters' motivations absolutely change as they level up. Like, I can't tell you how many druid players, start at tier 1. Oh, no. Okay. Oh, all right. We're just, there you go. All right. What's the next one, Neil?
Number 2, make problems outside of combat.
Yes.
Because you can have those tensions, because especially once you're implementing really intelligent issues or problems or people or monsters that they have to deal with. Yeah, like if you think of, like, the Grimer Worm, using more Lord of the Rings references, but you have the Grimer Wormtongue who's listening to Saruman, who's then making King Theoden do these certain things.
Right. It's just one guy, one villain, but what he's doing is building a bridge between all of these things, and everyone under the guy who's being manipulated by this one guy all of a sudden suffers because of this point, right?
Yeah, and having it be that they show up in the town, and you can't have a battle. You can't have a level 20 battle in the middle of this town without leveling it. Like, that, it doesn't work. So how are you navigating these scenarios that, again, your powers aren't, you're leading to the place where they can use their powers, and we're going back to, they absolutely need to, or else what are we doing? But also having scenarios where they're forced to not be able to use them at, just full bore.
Yeah. And remember, like, this is also something, too, that will really help you. NPCs are fallible. All people are fallible, just like your characters. Sometimes they make weird decisions that were mistakes, just like real people. So NPCs, too. You know, if your ally is, you know, the emperor of the land, and then the emperor's brother shows up and the emperor trusts him completely, lets him have full reign or whatever, but everyone knows he's a good, like a bad dude, but nobody can do anything about it because the emperor loves him and he's your ally. And he's absolutely said, do not do any, like, I trust him with my life. Like, that is one of those, like, like, what do? Do you betray your ally, right? How do you figure this out? Like, making those situations is critical. It's critical for high levels.
All right. And this is
number one.
This is what's number one?
We're just get your players' feedback. Well, we've said it all. Good job, Lucas. It's good. We're flowing into it.
Perfect sentence number one. This tip works at any level. Yes. The best way to find out what your players want is to just ask them.
Yep.
I did it. So it's literally on the threshold of this. I think subconsciously I was drawn to this article because I didn't do it with, well, I say that because I didn't do it with intention until right now where I realize my players were on the threshold of this because they just leveled up to level 10. And I basically said, we've kind of wrapped this arc. I don't know what you want to do because you have this much power. The options start to become really big. Like, do you want to start plane hopping? You kind of have the stuff that will facilitate that. So if you do want to do that, that's certainly an option. Because I allowed one of the characters to come from Eberron into the world. So then they have that tie back. So that's actually this last arc that I ran and they're the thief. So they knew, and listeners, I think I've mentioned this before, but basically they went and he knew where a downed Warforged Colossus was. And so he's wanting to get the docent inside of it. But I had also previously given them a professor orb to kind of help round out the party. And so then they, instead of putting one of them into the docent system, they put the professor orb into the docent system. And now it just basically you have a Warforged Colossus with Jarvis in it.
Hell, no.
Yeah, but luckily the one that was there is broken. So for it to like really work, they need to spend time and resources to get it there. Which they have, both of. So if they want to do that, they certainly can. But now that they've done that, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to just hunt? You know, ideas that I proposed was like, do you just want to hunt more large monsters throughout the world? That's certainly an option. Are you looking for more political things? Like, are you trying to build up this area that you're currently in, which is totally reasonable? Like, you can do it all. Like at this point, especially as you start to level up even more, like the options, there's no limit. So I've definitely done that, and I will keep doing that, especially as things keep progressing. I will keep checking in to see like what they're most interested in.
You know what? I actually have run 2 high level campaigns because I just had a flashback. My 3-5 campaign that I ran for like 4 years. We ended at like 20.
Nice.
And that was 3-5, so it was just banana pants. And basically, my whole thing was, okay, the arc that happened, you know, that last arc, because I was like, what? Everything ridiculous, right? So basically, there was just another plane of existence. It was like a collapsing dimension or whatever. Like, the people there had, like, goofed it up, and they were, like, uber spellcaster, like, alien-style creatures, and they just started portaling people in. They were just going to take over a new reality because they had destroyed their own, and that's what it was. So it was an incursion from another plane, right? And then that was the complexity of like, oh my god, these people have nowhere to go. Some of them aren't terrible, but some of them are just, it was just kingdoms of these beings like coming in to destroy things and just, so if your players can't go to the planes, you can always bring the planes to your players. That's a very... very good thing to do. Yeah.
Okay. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to let the world know, the easiest way is to go give us a rating and review on your podcatcher of choice. And of course, if you have ideas of how you've been running high level campaigns, you can always email us at dungeonmastersblock@gmail.com. And of course, you can find us on social media. We're trying TikTok some. Yeah. Facebook, which is weird the way you have to set it up. It's super difficult. Now you know, listener. And of course, it's Dungeon Masters Block or DMS_block. And for me, it's at Jote Moniac.
And for me, it's at C. Konowich.
And for everything else on the network, blockpartypodcastnetwork.com with a broken website because I didn't want to pay Squarespace more as we rebrand.
And of course, a huge thank you as always to the bards over on Bombarded for our intro and outro music. You can find out more about Bombarded at bombardedcast.com.
Taking your supplements.
So today on Taking Your Supplements, I have two very special guests in the mental gym, and I will let them both introduce themselves. And I'm very excited, so I will try and calm down, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm Rick Esquivius. I'm an art director and I guess game designer working on our first project called Sync. It's a supplement about pirates, tattoos, and dungeons.
Yeah, and I'm Sam Rusk. I'm a tattooer and artist, co-creator of Sync, along with Rick and Johnny.
Yes, in Sync, listeners, if you listened to the last episode, you know that Sync is near and dear to my heart in countless ways. I have a giant background now that just, I don't know that I ever want to change it because it's beautiful. Thank you for that. And we've already talked off air. If I don't end up with a Sync related tattoo on my body, I will be extremely disappointed with the choices I'm personally making.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about was me getting my first tattoo, making it a Sync tattoo.
Yes.
After this thing goes live.
I know it's not what you meant, but it did give vibes of we're going to do the tattoo live, like as part of.
We've actually talked about that. Yeah, I don't know how composed I'll be on camera while I'm getting my first tattoo, but I'm willing to give it a shot.
It's a little different for every person. I personally get a pretty big adrenaline rush, and I'll usually have to stop like 5 to 10 minutes in and just kind of take a walk because my body's just like on edge. And then from there, I'm ready to sit for the next 5-6 hours. But that initial like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but somebody keeps stabbing you a couple hundred times in quick succession. Would you like to react to that? And my body's like, come on. No, it's okay. I paid them for that, so it's fine.
Yeah, that sounds perfect to record something right after that or during it, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, just sweating.
And we're going to cut, and Rick's going to take a jog.
Just down the street. Oh, that's awesome. One of the things, and I know we're already kind of alluding to it, but I guess one of the big questions I had is like, who do you think Sync is for? I know that's a big kind of nebulous question, but if you think like, okay, who's the perfect person that's adding this to like their RPG game? Is
me.
What I wanted to ask.
Yeah, it's me.
It's me.
Done.
No, I think Sync is kind of for the dungeon master who wants to incorporate some. I mean, there's so many different elements to it, but like one of the things we're really excited about is the modularity of it. Everything in Sync you should be able to take and put into your own games. So the subclasses, the dungeons themselves, we want them to be able to be run as a level 3 through 10 adventure. But if you also just read the level 6 adventure and you want to pull that for your game for a session or two, we want the dungeons to sort of feel like something that is very adaptable to whatever it is that you want your home game to be like. And that's taken a lot of inspiration from stuff like Fantastic Layers by Mike Shea and James Intercasso, or Where Evil Lives from MCDM. So that modularity there on the DM side is, I think, what a lot of people are looking for, because it's very difficult to run that 2-year epic. And if you just want a one shot, you can grab a dungeon and run it. Or if you want to get a couple friends together and have this sort of side adventure in your home campaign, you can also do that. We also have the magic item tattoos is such a huge part of this book. We're going to have over 50 of them. I think 52, right?
52, yeah.
Yeah. There'll be a playing card deck associated with those. And those magic item tattoos are just like so awesome. Obviously, D&D has had magic item tattoos before, but I don't think they've ever been created by an actual tattoo artist. So the art is on point. The mechanics are interesting, and we want to incorporate them into the book and the setting in a more meaningful way than just, hey, you got this cool magic thing that you wear.
You brought up something I had not really thought of. I do see it. I have seen it a lot. I've spent a lot of time in tattoo places. I don't look it because that's just, I had those kind of jobs where I didn't really want to navigate that. So if I have a t-shirt and shorts on, you're not really going to know. But if I don't, first off, weird. Second off, there are a lot of tattoos. But one of the things you hit on, which I think is really important, is that a lot of people don't necessarily understand the difference between art and art that is a tattoo. Because the body is a canvas, yes, but it's not just a flat plane. And so there's something very different about that. So I had never thought of it that way. Also, can we talk about the cards just sitting there? And I mean, you get what you hit, and I'm pretty sure you just have someone pull a card, and then that's it. You just make the cards, and Rick, you pull one, and that's the tattoo you have to get.
In real life?
Yeah. This is a great idea. This is a great idea.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Perfect.
I don't.
Honestly, every one of Sam's pieces is incredible. That might not be a bad way to do it.
Yeah. Like, and then that's a great point. Sam, like I can see the inspiration, but like what are kind of the guidelines I think that you put up like for making the art? Because you have to, I mean, obviously you're working in kind of a specific setting, but then at the same time, your artistic expression also needs to, I'm a fool for saying that, clearly comes through. And like I said, this may be my permanent background forever. But yeah, so like what guidelines did you feel like you kind of set up as like the rails to keep you going on this particular art style?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, just a very heavy inspiration of traditional tattoos. That's always my favorite when I just get to make my own flash. You know, bold lines, bold colors, like a limited color palette. I don't work in like a traditional tattoo sense. I call it pop traditional, where the colors are a little more bright and like there's a few more than the, traditional color palette. But I think with Sync, we kind of landed in our zone of like selected colors and like a theme of like nautical inspiration, but like with a dark kind of eldritch. We've been using the word eldritch, which is sort of accurate, kind of twist.
Yeah, like Cthulhu-esque almost. Yeah.
I don't know. I love dark fantasy and like grimdark and stuff like that. So I feel like, I don't know, those two things aren't really married all the time, like traditional tattoos and like, dark fantasy settings. But yeah, I love the combination. So I think that we've kind of landed in that zone and it's been pretty consistent.
It also makes me think of all the time that I spent in the metal scene. It just the subgenre kind of descriptions, and you're just like, we don't have to do all that. We can just respect that this is amazing, and like you don't have to be mad that I didn't call it the super specific thing. But yeah, one of the things I noticed is like the lines are still thick, but a little bit thinner to allow kind of that color to have more room to breathe and be a little bit more of the focus. So I've enjoyed it because that's kind of where my stuff that I have in terms of traditional tattoos leans. There's a lot more color, a lot more pop because they're all Marvel and traditional. I don't think I said this
nerdy traditional. That's where I should have started. Like that's where I live. Like nerdy traditional. That's it.
A perfect example would be like I have a Sacred Heart, but instead it's the triangle Iron Man's chest.
Yes, amazing.
Nice.
See, you get it.
Yeah, and so then instead of a skull and crossbones, it's Wolverine like holding his claws across, and so it's all these kind of things. Hulk met with a Hanya mask, like, and so that's the aesthetic I go to. So yeah, like nerdy traditional is probably right up there, and like you said, but it pays homage to these things. And one of the things I love the most about this style is that it's still here and still so prominent.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of styles kind of come and go. Let's be honest. Do I feel kind of bad when I see someone with a barbed wire tattoo? A little, like,
but now it's cool again.
Yeah, it's finally cycling. Like, you stick with. I mean, it's there, and you just wait for about 20 years.
You just wait long enough. I'm holding out on my skinny jeans too. It's fine.
Yeah, you pulled out the skinny ones. I pulled out the ones where I can hide like a car inside of them. We're good. We're back. But yeah, the kind of thing where like the traditional style just stays prominent. It's almost like when you see like a car with flames on it. Like that's always going to be kind of cool. So like what I do like about this is like how long that goes. And I know that there's also the idea of once you've kind of opened this can of worms, the styles that are all out there, like you can always add more to this, and there's always more ideas for more tattoos. Like you said, you're creating flash sheets like a lot of people do, and then that could be just more sync ideas, or just more ideas for people to get. I know that you had also mentioned the dungeons, and there is a dungeon that's out for free, because I think you hit on the perfect way to approach making something like this, which kudos to you, because I've definitely made some of my own things, but realizing that every piece that you make for something like this should work on its own.
Right.
And so like that's definitely the design approach. Also, you hesitated in the beginning when you were like, I'm a game designer. No, 10 toes on business. Say it loud and proud. You designed something. You're putting out an awesome Kickstarter. Game designer. Confidence.
Yeah, no, it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bam.
Yeah, I'm incredibly proud of the work that we've done for this, and really all the support and sort of mentorship that we've had along the way. We've been super lucky. But, I've been running D&D on my own for like 5 years now, and I'm a graphic designer by trade. So every time since the beginning that I've run a campaign, there's always been essentially modules of my own game. So doing that for a couple of years, I think sort of helped. And then I started running D&D at my job, where they actually use it now as like a tool for new hires. They're like, oh, we have a Dungeons and Dragons club. And I'm like, we'll see.
Nice.
But getting the opportunity to run it for so many different people, I didn't realize kind of helped train me to be able to write things that work for lots of different groups. I've probably introduced near like 60 or 70 people to the game over the last couple of years. So yeah, figuring out how to hit that beat, because we do all love those games that go 2 years and you have that consistent group of 5 or 6 players and you tell this epic story, and I've had my share of those as well. But sometimes you want a dungeon that you can run a group of friends for, and you all have kids and jobs, and we can commit to 4 weeks, right? What can we do in those 4 weeks? Well, here's an amazing dungeon with a cool bad guy at the end. And we're really proud of that.
Yeah, and it works great for convention games, themed parties. Like, there's so many different things that a one-shot can be good for. And I'm actually the kind of person that really leans towards grabbing one-shots and putting those into my long-running campaigns. Like, if I can't quite, what do I want next? Like, what would be great for this? And then I literally just start digging around and looking at the one-shots I have or one-shots that are coming out. I'm like, nope, there it is. That's perfect. Hey, thanks for doing all the legwork. And certainly I have to fold it in narratively and do that correctly. But yeah, having those available and knowing how much my players for some reason just love getting more ships, which is awesome, because it's I can steal some of their resources so they don't have too much, because they always want another ship. I'm like, you guys can only be on one ship at a time, but okay. So yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. We do have, I think one of the things we were trying to find a good balance for is, like, we do really love the setting of the Calderreach Sea, and we do have our own lore for Ygathul and Davy Jones and all of these sort of other elements that will be included in the book, so that if you want to run it as a level 3 through 10 adventure all the way through, you also can. But it was just important to us that, like, these dungeons be meaningfully interesting and engaging on their own.
Which I feel is like the anthology style books that have come out from D&D seem to have gotten like a really prominent place before those exact reasons. I mean, some of them, their balance is weird because they were brought from older editions, and dragons are real mean comparatively in 5e. That's a sticking point. That's just a personal problem I have, because I remember things from 3rd edition and I was all all the players are dead. That's weird. You guys probably shouldn't. Yeah, you probably should change something. Oops. And so, but pulling those pieces out, Sam, I was trying to think, and I don't want, if you don't like this question, we can move past this question, because I am definitely going to make you, or inquire.
I'm so excited to hear it.
To inquire as to something that is, you may not, you're like, I don't want to answer that. Is there a favorite piece of art that you've done? That feels I know that feels rude to ask.
Okay, this is so silly because it's such a sub part of the book that we just kind of made some lore around. I don't even know if it'll be in the book, but we did some, actually, I think Rick is wearing the shirt of it right now.
Yes.
There's, I drew like this Lost Knight
Oh yeah.
image. So like we now we have like this sunken night lore that yeah, it's probably not going to be in the book. Maybe like little hints towards like his background and stuff, but I had so much fun making a couple pieces about about this guy.
There's so I'm gonna be so mad. I'm gonna be so bummed because I've seen that piece because I've seen it in some of the promotional material, and I'm really drawn to that piece of artwork. That I didn't mean that as a pun, but but the idea that like, and I don't know what lore you have, but for my brain immediately is like someone with enough hubris to wear that while on a boat. Like that's a very particular kind of individual. They fall off. They die. That's how that works. And then, but like as you're going down, like, are you met with a great old one? Are you met with, so like, are you talking warlock? Are you talking a paladin approach, but like more of a negative way? And now they're like this pseudo undead being because they had to be, or else they were just going to die. And then you just think of like, well, it's going to take me a while, but I'm just going to walk back out of the ocean.
Yeah, I'm wondering how it's going to be taken in game, because this sort of like theory crafting that we're doing live is one of my favorite things about D&D in general, is you taking the setting and then making it your own. And we won't talk too much about what he is, but his name is the Lost Knight. And there are hints in dungeons and in the setting about what his backstory is and what his things are. And there's even a tattoo that you can get his steed with. And that is probably my favorite piece of art.
That's up there for sure.
Yeah, it's in some promotional, we call it the Kelpie for now.
Nice.
But yeah, it's so cool to just hear you like live craft what you think this tattoo is going to be.
I love it.
And I just imagine doing what he do, and then turn right back around and just walk right back off into the ocean.
That's my favorite thing about traditional tattoos is they're so iconic. Like you have this very bold image, but people put like their own meaning to it all the time. And I feel like that is why I'm so excited about tying in tattoos in D&D and like having players like tell their stories with these tattoos, and like they get to put like their own meaning behind like each piece. Like I think it's so fun.
Yeah, and there's that next layer, that second layer element to these as well, is because they are magical. There's so much more that you can talk about, like the one with the dice, and now the name is escaping me. But
Gambler's Virtue.
The Gambler's Virtue.
Gambler's Virtue. Where last episode I was kind of talking about the idea of like in the morning, like taking those dice off of you, rolling them, whatever they are, putting them back, and that's what you still see now. And so did you roll boxcars and that's what you see? Or did you roll snake eyes and that's what you see? But the idea that because of magic, what are the limits? And hiding, my favorite from, I think you were bringing it back, is like hiding a weapon. Like it's a tattoo of a dagger on my forearm, but that's because it's an actual dagger. I also thought about like the rogue also doing like a set of keys as like almost like a wristband kind of thing on the other arm or something like that. So yeah, I think it's not only the ideas that you get directly, but I think it's like Rick, kind of like you're saying, it's all of those indirect ideas that are like really, really interesting, and how much motivation and inspiration you guys are putting out there into the world.
Give somebody a solid mechanical framework, and then these things are so beautiful. It's like the flavor will come out. Every player will have their own interpretation of the art.
Well, I guess what could people expect kind of from the Kickstarter would be another kind of starting to round us out kind of question. Like, well, I mean, I already signed up really early so that I can get that super cool pin, but that's a whole.
The Kickstarter launches on September 17th. And yes, thank you so much for signing up for that pin. It is very cool. If you go to get.syncrpg.com, you can reserve it for just $1. And then if you get any physical pledge, that will be added to your cart. And if you end up not doing that, you get your $1 back. But the Kickstarter will have tons of exciting things. We've got obviously like the deluxe edition of the covers and a box set, but there's also these incredible minis that we have gotten sculpted.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, one of them of our boy Captain Grimscar, who's been sort of like the mascot in a lot of ways for what we're trying to do with these warlocks. He's the warlock at the end of the free adventure, Treasures of Deep Grotto. So we got one of him, and Yigathul as well, who's this sort of big bad Eldritch Cthulhu devil deity of the Calderreach Sea. And there's so many more cool minis. Of course, the one that I'm most excited about is we've made a coloring book of all of Sam's beautiful line art. So you get to fill it in yourself with however you'd like.
Or take it to your tattoo artist.
Take it to your tattoo artist. Yeah, we've got DM screens and dice. Oh, the biggest one, the temporary tattoos.
Oh, yeah.
We have temporary tattoos that will come in certain packages or as an add-on where you can, when your players get the magic item tattoo, they can actually wear it in real life as well. And we've tried some of those on and they look incredible. So yeah, that's going to be super fun.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't you, Sam? Didn't you have like D&D licensed temporary tattoos come out?
I did. That was so surreal. Those were through the game, or sorry, not the game company, toy company Super 7. They partnered with, they're so cool. Yeah, I worked with them and we put out a pack of, I think it was 4 sheets of some D&D Flash that I did a few years ago, like right when I was getting really obsessed with D&D, and like every single piece of Flash I think since has been D&D or TTRPG like related stuff. So yeah, that was really, really cool.
Yeah, the Tiamat one was like the one that came to mind right now.
Yeah, that was the one on the front. There's like the Displacer Beast, a beholder, some dice.
Well, I do have to ask. So we've mentioned cards. Will like a deck of playing cards be available through the Kickstarter later? Anything?
Yeah, the playing cards will be available in the Kickstarter as well, along with magic item cards, right, Sam?
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll have both of those,
like NPC monster cards. There's so much stuff, and I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
There's a tier on there where you can have a game run by Johnny or Rick, and those will be super cool.
And our highest tier, which is the coolest tier, is you actually get a 4-hour real life tattoo session with Sam Rusk.
Nice.
Yeah, if you can make it to the Bay Area.
Hey, that's the way to go. I'll plan on that inside or outside of the Kickstarter.
Heck yeah, that would be so fun.
I would say that's my long-term plans, certainly. Like I said, I don't feel like that's a sentence that everyone says all the time. Typically, it's the reverse of, I will regret the tattoo I get. And I am right now the complete opposite. I will deeply regret the tattoo I don't get.
Yes.
So we'll have to figure that out. But where is, and I think we mentioned it just to really send it home, where is the best place that people can go now, during, or after the Kickstarter to get all things Sync?
Yeah, if you go to get.synkrpg.com, that's where you can reserve that pin for $1. And once you can only do that until the Kickstarter launches on September 17th. Once the Kickstarter launches, the best place is synkrpg.com. That will redirect you to the Kickstarter where you can see all of these amazing tiers and place your pledge.
Perfect. Well, thank you both for coming on and sharing even more about Sync. Like I said, it's near and dear to my heart, and I will try and navigate how much money is reasonable for me to spend on the Kickstarter.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
But with that, we'll turn out the lights and head out of the gym. And I brought it in, so I'll say. But before we go, we would implore you, the listener, to join the forums, the Discord, Twitter, anywhere else you can find us, and join in these challenges, exercises, and other amazing conversations being had.
To do that, head over to bit.ly/DMBanter and try some DM-Nastics so your players don't ask, do you even lift?